This is Newsfile, and on Newsfile we put Ghana first. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. Now let's go to Burkina Faso. Or Burkina Faso is getting closer to Ghana, is it? We are told that some Burkinabés have been, that was yesterday or on Thursday, were picketing at the embassy right here in Ghana. And what were they looking for? They wanted Blaise Compaoré to step down. We know the story and how it began. There was supposed to be a constitutional amendment process in the parliament of Burkina Faso. And when that process was going on, some citizens decided to march to Parliament House and demand that the process be stopped. It was a process to give Blaise Compaoré another opportunity to contest elections after he has had the opportunity twice, 5 years. So 10 years combined. And those were 10 years before, prior to the years he had spent, after the years he had already enjoyed as a head of state. Dr. Makuba, you deal with politics. You teach students politics. How do you read the politics of Burkina Faso this moment?
I think they've done well for themselves because freedom is not free. I mean, you want liberty, you have to fight for it. And they have determined they were prepared to pay a high price for that. And I commend them.
They've done well by throwing away their constitution?
Well, they've done well by throwing away their dictator. That's the first thing. The constitution too was flawed. It is the constitution that allows the government to do what it wants. I mean, who writes a constitution like that, except if you are writing it for yourself? If you put in measures that you can change the constitution to benefit some group in society, i.e. the presidency, there should be a clause in there that change must not take effect immediately, so that that is where the corruption comes from. So if you're able to change it, maybe it takes effect after the next election, so that you're not looking at yourself. And so when you have such a constitution, it means it is flawed. If you follow it, it won't change anything. And so I really commend them for standing up, putting their lives on the line, actually, and throwing their dictator out. Maybe it gives all of us a message. You see, we have this attitude in Africa. Some people have behaved as if the country belongs to them and others are just guests in it. They are workers. And so what they say, what they do is what is important. If it is a democracy, it is their government. You vote so that your life becomes better, not worse. And so that when we get government behaving as if it is defending itself, the government should not defend itself. The government should speak for the people. I'm not saying that we should allow government to be bashed every chance people get. But there are times we have to acknowledge that the government is wrong. Because it's our government. Who does things right all the time? If we do some of it, and in this, I'm talking to Kwacho Fuzu here, I think he's very smart. But it's not everything he should defend. Sometimes the government has done something wrong. Say, okay, this one, we didn't do it right. We're going to look at it, something like that. And that's it. But if you keep defending everything, then in effect you're saying that you're never wrong. And this is what is happening to Mr. Compaoré now. He was going to use these machinations to stay in power. And you can say, yes, the law is there. But the people know the law is flawed because he had a 2/3 majority in parliament anyway. It's a rubber stamp parliament, as we've had in Ghana too. You see, this is the danger. When parliament does its work and check the president as they are supposed to check him, oversight responsibility. In a lot of ways, they are helping the president. They are helping the country too, because sometimes it's just like a parent who gives everything that a child wants to him. You are spoiling the child. Sometimes they bring something to parliament. They want 200 million. You look at it and say, okay, no, 200 is too much. How about 150? And the interest rate is too high. Can you negotiate it down? Then they go and negotiate, then approve it. That's how it should be. Not Robert and boom. And we keep doing that, and now we are at IMF. We are in the ditch. This is a lesson to us.
How does this relate to Burkina Faso?
There are those who are saying the Burkina Faso incident should be a lesson for us in Ghana.
Yes.
In the way we look at our process to amend the constitution.
Yes.
How do we make that analogy?
Ours is not too bad like that one, where you could do that. That part is not in our constitution, so it's not that bad. But we have a lot of things in there that are wrong. And when you are not lucky to have a parliament that is doing its job, then of course it degenerates to the same level as Burkina Faso. Let's be honest here.
I've read your book about the review of the Ghanaian constitution, and you suggest, among other things, that we should even trash that constitution and rewrite it.
Write a new one, because it's just too many problems. I mean, look, they are suggesting 97 amendments already, and more are coming. I haven't added mine either. And then the language, and then the style. If you're going to do all of this, why not write a new one? It doesn't mean throw this one out. When you finish writing a new one, present it to the people. If they ratify it, then that one takes over. That's it.
Dr. Kwesa, you've also, of course, have your eye on the political, processes.
Political scientist
exactly, that's who you are, political scientist. Didn't Compaoré see this coming?
Well, I think it was on the wall. It has been on the wall for a very long time, and it was just a matter of time. I think Compaoré belonged to a generation of African leaders, many of whom had really long left the scene. In circumstances like that, it tells us as Ghanaians how great we have been to ourselves by making sure that we make a transition from a similar circumstances in Burkina Faso to a more democratic political system that allows us to build institutions, work with those institutions, and ensure that we have a better country. But I think that there are quite a number of lessons that the Burkina Faso situation actually holds for other African countries as a whole. Blaise Compaoré brought this onto himself largely because of his sense of entitlement to hold on to power. A sense of entitlement to hold on to power or to become a president at all costs sometimes lie at the foreground of these kinds of behaviors that we have seen in Burkina Faso. In other words, in a democracy, there is nothing like an entitlement.
When you refer to become president at all costs, are you going back to the history of how Thomas Sankara was removed, as in were killed?
Well, that could be part of it, but even our contemporary Ghanaian history, there are glittering examples of similar circumstances. We have seen some that had led to the Supreme Court case and everything, and so on and so forth. Thankfully enough, we have institutions that have taken on a robust, maturing posturing as far as the transformation of our society is concerned. And so to that extent, we can all defer to those institutions and make sure that these kinds of situations do not necessarily occur in our country. We have moved on very far. I think what probably took Blaise Compaoré by surprise is the way it happened, and happened so sudden. The signs had always been there. And what is particularly interesting about the Burkina Faso case is the fact that the Thomas Sankara generation are of age. The Thomas Sankara generation, the people who were kids when Thomas Sankara was killed, have grown to learn about who Thomas Sankara was, read about him, and given the entrenched nature of Blaise Compaoré, they have had no other choice but to admire Thomas Sankara for what he stood for. And I don't know if you've read about Thomas Sankara, his sayings, his philosophy, his ideas about governance and everything. He was very inspiring. Yeah. He was a very inspiring individual. And I think that if you live in a country where you are aware that once upon a time we had a leader who lived for a very short period but was removed, but these were his ideas about how we could move forward, and we found ourselves, or you found yourself in a kind of a quagmire that Burkina Faso had been in, you could see that the signs were on the wall, because that generation had spread out in the universities, they were in the army, they were in the police force, they were in the public services, they were in everywhere. And it just took a little bit of conversations around social media, and then it's kind of sparked the kind of situation we are seeing right now. But it holds for us also an important lesson that speaks to the fact that we must learn to respect the will of the people at all times, the will of the people through the electoral processes. And that for everybody who contests an election in this country, it doesn't matter whether at the district assembly level or at the level of the presidency, you should always have yourself prepared for two results. You may be defeated, and defeated disastrously, or you may win, and win very graciously. And in both cases, you must be magnanimous enough to accept the outcome. any intention or any idea by any individual to assume that the only option in an election is victory must be immediately discouraged in Ghana and elsewhere, because that kind of feeling or that kind of predisposition could potentially plunge a country into chaos should the so-called victory that the individual, so to speak, or a political party, so to speak, if they did not get that victory, they may end up pushing their supporters over the cliff. And so I think that going forward, we have lessons to pick from it. I don't think that that kind of circumstances comes anywhere close to where we are, because we have options. We have 4-year election every now and then. We have a fledgling media that allows people to speak their mind, even though I would have wished that the content of speaking the mind is more informed.
Okay.
But going forward, we can learn from it and make sure that we build our institutions to avoid it.
Right. Kuku, what do you say to ECOWAS's response? Immediately, ECOWAS issued a statement and straightforward said, we are not going to recognize any military, replacement, so to speak.
Well, that's the principle across Africa. So I wasn't really surprised. The question is whether they did enough to, resist or to advise. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. Compaoré, when he was trying to, eat away the constitutionality of even the limited space that they had. So in principle, I see the drift where the ECOWAS, people can decide to be cynical and ask yourself, even post Compaoré, what influence would ECOWAS have in terms of the situation there? The people of Burkina Faso have voted with their feet against
they voted with fire.
Yes, a very deformed constitutional arrangement. But I am a bit cautious, and I don't know. I haven't done any serious study since this event started unfolding as to what the voting with their feet is resulting in. Appears to be a certain military shadow also hiding somewhere, hanging around, and perhaps seeking to come into the middle as a transitional arrangement of a sort. I'm cynical. I have problems with any attempt by a military regime or a military setup to try and create the impression they can govern. I have a problem. Perhaps I'm too negative when it comes to those things. See, Sankara, Compaoré, people don't know. They were members of a secret organization in the Burkina Army. That's the Upper Volta Army, then known as the Communist Officers Group. They were close friends, and indeed the coup of August 4th, 1983 was organized by Compaoré, who then made Sankara the president. The same Compaoré organized the October 15th, 1987 coup that got Sankara assassinated. They were a group of officers. I have the list of their names here. They were in the secret, just like Boachijan and his friends had the African revolutionary something in the armed forces. These were soldiers with a left-wing mindset. But I have problems with any soldier who wants to do politics whilst putting on his uniform.
So it's the uniform you have a problem with?
If you want to do politics, take off your uniform, resign, retire.
The circumstances.
No.
If it is not against a democratically elected government.
Well, that's a counter coup.
Yeah.
I'm talking here coup d'etats. So most of them end up being Western cowboys. Yeah, Western cowboys. They come flamboyant, talk good language, do all that. Look, in spite of everything, ideologically, yes, I could sympathize with Sankara. I was in jail then. It was a Libyan coup, just like the Ghanaian coup. Sankara and Compaoré's coup was Libyan backed, and at that time was with all its disruptive nature in Africa, threatening emergent constitutional regimes. It was idealistic, very idealistic. He had good ideas, and he did something good. He did certain serious social reforms and things. There's no doubt about it. But his human rights records too was terrible. even under Sankara. It continued under Compaoré. So military chaps,
who suspicious of them.
yes, I have an eternal antipathy towards them. I don't trust them. So I don't know how they are going to structure the transition. They should watch it. Any role for the military chaps must be very, very limited and very transient, quickly. And that's where perhaps ECOWAS and the rest, AU and the rest should come in with a certain roadmap. Of course, if we can contain the situation there, then we may not have too much disturbance in terms of sub-regional security. But that threat, that potential.
But what do you make of the suggestions that he was heading towards Ghana and we seem to have opened our doors? We said, well, we welcome him. We have nothing to do.
For humanitarian reasons, if he wants to seek asylum here, why not? I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
He's powerless. Look, this is finished. Compaoré is finished politically.
After he's been overthrown, he now writes a resignation letter.
Well,
he says he's
Well,
resigned.
to get out
You see,
Well, it's a question of which one comes first.
This is self-inflicted,
somehow, so-
self-inflicted agony. And I hope boys like, or chaps maybe better, like Yahya Jammeh and the rest are listening. I hope they are watching. Museveni, Mugabe, all they sit tight,
Okay,
greedy
let me continue with
African
you,
leaders.
Felix. And we are hearing that Burkina Faso has closed its borders to Ghana, so there's no opportunity, as it were, to be able to come in here.
Some have come in.
Well, I'm not sure.
But we understand that as of this morning, they've closed their borders.
Well, I can say on authority that we have not received any formal request from Blaise Compaoré to seek asylum in Ghana. There were reports in the international media that he was headed for Po, which is a community about 30 minutes away from
That's his
our border
hometown.
with Burkina, which is his hometown. So that perhaps may have triggered suspicion and speculation that he was headed for Ghana. But as I speak to you, there is no such request, and Ghana has not been told to receive Compaoré. Neither do we know where he is at the moment. But like we said, there are international obligations, and as and when these requests come in, you look at them on case-by-case basis.
Is the country doing anything in anticipation of maybe some of Burkina's people coming in because of the uncertainty?
Well, an assessment will be done. Then again, we also have international obligations in terms of accepting refugees or people who are moving away from conflict areas. So all that assessment will be done, and as and when it is necessary. The right
No, not
mechanisms-
it will be done. I'm asking if it's proactively being done.
Of course, Ghana stands prepared, and it is not. It will not be the first time that we have received refugees. There have been conflict situations in the past where we've been involved.
Right.
But let me say that Compaoré made his continuous stay untenable through his own machinations, and there was no way that the people of Burkina Faso were going to allow him this time to have his way. Finally, something. Let me say that government, as part of the need to be transparent and accountable, has a duty to correct misimpression and falsehood. So when you do that, it doesn't mean you are defensive. It is your duty to show that claims that are not false cannot stand.
Listen,
And when you do
You are
that,
going back.
it is
It's
not
okay.
defensive.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And a few of your messages here. Kokwazan again. That's Professor
he
Stephen
continuing his
Asari.
computation?
He says the Judgment Debt Commissioner can make a clear distinction. He's hoping that it can make a clear distinction among debts paid as a result of a criminal conspiracy by public officials to raid the treasury, or 2, incompetent defense by the Attorney General, and 3, negligence by state actors that create liability for the Republic. And thank you all for the messages that you're sending in. You have been listening to Newsfile, coming to you from Joy 99.7 FM. I'm Samson Ladia. My guests have been Dr. Michael Pesa White. He is the acting executive director of the National Service Scheme, and is a presidential staffer and responsible for academic affairs.
How did you come by that one?
I've seen it written somewhere that you are presidential staffer academic.
Really?
Yes.
No, but once he doesn't know, it means it's not fair.
Let's talk like that.
Professor of political science, and he's the head of the political science department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Felix Kwachi Ofosu is Deputy Communications Minister, and Abdul Malik Wekubaku Jr. is Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. The news is up next. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.